So Amanda is a creation from the three of us, and basically we're taking her through the transition of her life. And imagine this woman as she goes through the transitions as if she didn't go through the preceding one. So if that makes sense. So when she gets to be 38, we're going to heal her at 28, and then we're going to heal her at 38, and then at 52. But imagine that she wasn't previously healed, just so you keep it straight in your brain. So Amanda first goes for that initial diagnosis to a psychiatrist who diagnoses her with depression, puts her on an SSRI, Wellbutrin. She wasn't happy with this, and so she decided to come to us. And basically, we diagnosed her in a more holistic and thorough fashion. In short, Amanda is 28. She works as a computer programmer, long hours. She has a poor diet, lives on coffee. She parties a lot. She has sex with several partners in a casual fashion, not very protected. She doesn't have a solid relationship, but she does want to find the right person. She feels lost and lonely, confused about where her life is going. She wants to move up in her company and find a secure place in the industry, but feels unappreciated, misunderstood, and treated poorly in what she perceives as a sexist profession. She's not sure if this is the right field for her. She is also trying to decide if she wants to get married and have kids like all her high school friends, but realizes she went off to college and worked really hard for her degree. She's still paying off her loans and can't imagine how she will ever get to thinking about having a family. Mostly she just feels tired and stressed out. Amanda is estranged from her mom, who lives alone in a town near her. She talks to her dad often, and he is remarried and lives in Tucson. He is very traditional and wants her to find the right guy and settle down, but he's also proud of her career goals. So we are going to start with Dr. Deb and treating her.
Jenny mentioned that she initially went to the doctor.
Okay.
And her doctor put her on Wellbutrin. Do I need to stand up?
Yeah, please.
I love Amanda's 28 years old because these are the women that come into my office quite often, and lately I've been seeing a lot of women in their 20s and even their early 20s that on the outside that they look great. They do yoga, they eat well, but you know, they do have sugar addiction or coffee addiction, and they don't feel good. And they usually present in my office. I'm a chiropractor and I do acupuncture, and I read blood tests and saliva tests. So, you know, people come to my office mostly for pain, but this woman came into my office for pain. We went through her history, and we found out all these things that are happening with her. And so someone like this will go to the doctor, and he would diagnose her and then put her on a drug, and then see her a year later and not really tell her that she needs some stress management, not really talk about her diet, not really find out where her blood sugar problems are. So I think it's important to empower women, especially at this age, that they can go to the doctor and they can find you know, alternative ways of testing for themselves. There are blood testing labs that are really discounted for people, that they can even come into my office, or you can go directly online and get your own blood test and find out where your blood sugar is. I use these, I brought these are saliva testing that you can do like a whole day and find out where your adrenal panel is throughout the whole day. And I actually brought a sample, I'm going to pass it around, of someone who's 27 years old who eats really well but has poor adrenals. So you know, it's really the first one. And I circled the things in the handouts that I have that are eye-catching. So what I would do with her, I would work with her on her diet. I would work with her on eating protein in the morning. That's one of the first pages of the handout that I had given on the blood sugar and the adrenals. Work with her on eating throughout the day, eating protein with all her snacks. You know, decrease the coffee, decreasing the sugar, and try to get her to do some kind of stress management in her life, whether it's yoga or meditation or walking or painting or reading, or something to get her mind off of the fact that it's going a million miles an hour, and giving her the opportunity to empower herself to make her own healthcare decisions at this age before she becomes Amanda at 38. There's a lot more problems in this. So there's a,
Okay, so
I'm the psychospiritual assessment person. So she would come into my office, and this is an imaginary clinic. In real life, you might find that you would need to go find 3 different offices of people doing these 3 things. But in my practice, I covered these issues. So Amanda is definitely distraught because she can't seem to find a long-term partner, and she's dissatisfied with her sexual relationships. And we start with talking about her family history, doing a genogram, and it's clear there are many unresolved issues that are happening with her in terms of poor attachment, struggle with her parents after the divorce, unresolved issues at that time in her life. And this plays out in her romantic relationships. She talks about not being orgasmic. We'll talk about that a little bit more with Jenny. And she admits that she really doesn't know, she's really confused about her values. And this is very typical of this time, of this transition for women. It's like time is running out. What am I going to do with my life? Those kinds of feelings. So I talk to her about that, and we talk about her dreams and her hopes and what she wants her life to look like. And does she want to have a family? A very important question. And she admits that she's pretty scared about that she's not sure she could be a good mom. And she thinks maybe focusing on her career would make her happier. So we begin to talk more about how she can make her life a little more, more meaningful for her. And part of the way I talk to her about that is helping her to do a spiritual assessment of her life. Talk about what kinds of activities she loves, what things she's been involved in the past, what is her support system, how can she expand herself in some of those areas of her life. Her dad, she told me that her dad tried to promote activities to expand her self-esteem, and she was in choir and she was in church, and then it all fell apart when the divorce happened, and her life kind of caved in on her. Her mother was very, very busy working, and she was very limited in her ability to go out and do those kinds of things as a teenager. And that's when the problems started for her, and that's when her life began to fall in. So when Amanda says she feels stressed out, it's really something that I would define as a lack of psychospiritual dimension and a lot of negative thinking patterns. So I would talk to her about that. Really treating her with antidepressants would only narrow her experience of her spirit and her libido, rather than help her to expand her life and activate more of who she is. So my treatment would be to examine her stress triggers, to share with her how through mindfulness practice she can learn how to find inner balance and positive energy that helps her flow through her day. I would suggest exercise classes and yoga. I would suggest my mindfulness meditation class, some individual psychotherapy, those kinds of things. And I'd also kind of hint to her that it might be a good idea to work on some of the issues with her mom.
Thank you, Donna. So I would be looking at the sexual pieces of Amanda. The 2 primary ones were the anorgasmia and looking for a partner and sort of floundering around in a casual and not safe way out there. And so when working with an individual, especially with anorgasmia, I like to say that intimacy starts with the self. And whether I'm working with couples, women who are 18 or 81, again, intimacy starts with the self. And so we would do a number of different things in terms of looking at body image and exercises at home, behavioral exercises at home towards body image and reclaiming her sexuality, reclaiming her body, starting to feel good and moving towards acceptance of her body. And then moving towards acceptance of her vulva. How does she feel about her vulva? Is she friends with her vulva? Oftentimes when we grow up, we get a lot of sex-negative messages or no messages at all. We get silence. And silence speaks volumes. And so we create a relationship or a lack of a relationship with ourselves as women, as a whole woman, and also a lack of a relationship with our sexual parts, such as our vulva. And so looking at those relationships would be part of what we would do in therapy. Again, creating time and energy for herself. Again, intimacy starts with the self. And it's not just time with her vulva, but taking time with her whole self, taking relaxing baths. What does intimacy look like? Creating that connection and bond with herself. Dates with herself. So part of that may be baths, playing relaxing music, candles, and starting to use that time towards self-exploration and what that would look like. As she moves on, she might start to weave in fantasy books, if that's up her alley, and start to learn how to create fun fantasies for herself, looking at permission to create fantasies for herself. I always like to do a list of 10 things that make you sexy. So if you take anything home tonight, 10 things that make you feel sexy in your own skin, and that's an internally validated list. So not necessarily what the person down the street thinks or what your partner thinks, it's what do you think. So for instance, I feel sexy when I play Michael Jackson music and dance in front of the mirror. So there's an example of something you could add to your list. So I would self-disclose that with her too and help her generate that list, maybe as a piece of homework. And then in terms of the piece that Donna was saying and looking at mom issues, I'm in full agreement with that and would also work with her on parts of that, especially those sex-negative messages. If there were sex-negative messages or silence or, well, where does this should come from? I can't let go, I can't go over this cliff, I can't surrender. Orgasm is about surrender. And if she's holding on too tight to something, who's telling her? What's that message in her background? Who's telling her that? So deconstructing some of those messages, probably through empty chair work, talking to mom, reclaiming her sexuality, basically. So that would be my portion, and we're going to move to Amanda at 38.